Hey, what's up guys? So I'm going to bring you a new one here, and this is a new game called Terminull Brigade. Terminull Brigade. And it was a playtest. I was actually able to get lucky enough to get a key for this thing. It was only a 2-day playtest. It was for the 10th and the 11th. Ended up yesterday. And it's a pretty cool little concept for a PvE dungeon crawler type game. It's co-op only, or not co-op only. It's PvE only, and it's a 3-player co-op. Not sure if this is going to change when it comes down to the full release. The game is expected to release on the 29th of this month, and there are a couple takeaways from it. The first one being is the art style for it. It's actually pretty positive. One for me, when I received an email talking about a new upcoming PvE game called Terminull Brigade, I was skeptical at first because I usually don't get these types of emails saying, hey, you sign up for this and participate in a playtest or whatever. So I wanted to check to see if it was coming out on Steam, and it already said in the email that, yeah, this game is going to be available on Steam. I don't think they mentioned anything about consoles, but from what I can tell, it doesn't look like it would be a PC-specific game or a PC-exclusive game. It should come out on console too, but I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be a PC only thing. I haven't read anything about whether or not it's going to have a console release. So to start off, 3-player co-op game. It's class-based. There is no limit to how many of the same hero you can have. At the moment, when the playtest opened, we only had access to the hero that you see on screen right now. Her name is Aurora. And what's actually pretty cool about Aurora is usually when it comes to a game like this, like anything class-based, you're going to be given a hero to play with and kind of test out their abilities and such. Usually when it comes down to the starter hero or starter character, whoever, they usually have a very generic kit, and I think that's kind of intentional because it's trying to get yourself familiarized with a kit that you're probably already familiar with from a different game of the same genre maybe. But here Aurora plays very differently. She does not feel generic. Like, for example, when I first started playing Marvel Rivals and, trying to understand game mechanics and such, it started you off with Punisher. Now, for me, when it comes to Marvel, I love the entire roster except for Punisher. Punisher is he's pretty straightforward. He's basically like the Soldier 76 of Overwatch. He's a very simple hero to understand, and because of that, he felt pretty generic, at least in my opinion. Yeah, it's cool that he can spawn a turret, that he can control himself and all, but when it came down to it, Punisher just felt very generic. Here, my first impression getting access to play Aurora off the top, she's very fun. She does not feel generic. She doesn't feel weak. In fact, from what I can tell, she's an AoE based character. Usually you don't get access to a character like this right off the top as a starting character, so she's actually pretty fun to play. Now, as far as unlocking the other heroes, and in Terminull Brigade, I think they're referred to as, I don't know what the pronunciation is because while the subtitles are in English and everything in the game is translated to English, the actual voices are in Chinese. So I'm not sure how exactly they're pronounced. I don't know if they're called Rogueteers or Rogueteers. I would assume probably Rogueteers. Rogueteers kind of sounds better than Rogueteers. Rogueteers is kind of makes it feel like you're advancing up a tech tree or something. So I'm going to assume they're called Rogueteers, but that's what they're called in game, the heroes. And you have several heroes to start with, but you have to unlock one hero and then another hero called Omni. He, I believe, feels more like a I don't know, like a standard boots on the ground type character, although he has a pretty cool ult. But either way, to unlock the next character, which is Blade, you actually have to, at least in the playtest, I'm sure it's going to be different in the full release, but all you got to do is you have to beat difficulty tier 3 mission to actually unlock Blade, and there's actually 10 difficulty tiers. Currently, a lot of players, kind of depending on how quickly they could get through each mission. The missions themselves, the dungeons, I don't know what they're called. I think they're just called missions, but they're pretty lengthy. They're about half an hour or so. Kind of just depends on how quickly you can get through each gallery or each section of the map before going on to the boss section, like what we see here. This is actually the first of 2 bosses, if I remember right. And if you can clear a difficulty mission or a difficulty tier within 31 minutes, you'll be able to unlock the next difficulty and then to unlock subsequent difficulties. Again, I'm not sure if it's going to be like this in the full release or not, but at least in the playtest, you have to beat a mission within 31 minutes, so half an hour, to actually unlock the next difficulty. I know that some players were able to get up to tier 7. I was stuck at tier 4 for some reason. I don't know why. It felt like after the second day or so when I was playing Blade, getting really familiarized with the character and getting familiarized with the enemies, because everyone's always playing on this current mission, which is called Ring City. There was another map called Wasteland, but no, I don't think anyone was queuing for Wasteland at all. Everyone was always queuing for Ring City, and I don't blame them. I think Ring City is actually pretty cool. I could not get past tier 4, and it felt like there were times where I would clear an entire dungeon within 25 minutes or so. So that's pretty quick, considering a lot of us were just steaming and just rolling through every single section of these maps of the mission. But I still didn't unlock it, so that was kind of a bummer. But one cool thing about the difficulties is, one, they do increase. Obviously, the difficulty does increase the amount of damage that you can sustain from enemies. The boss patterns as well, the boss attacks, their patterns, the way they attack and everything will change depending on the difficulty. So that's actually pretty cool. It kind of keeps the bosses a bit fresh. I noticed this with a couple of the bosses when I was playing tier 4. But one thing that I was really quickly to pick up on is, while this game is incredibly fun, I think the power scaling right now, the power creep that's going on with the game, at least in the playtest, you can really clear all these sections by yourself. There really is no need for a team. A lot of people were saying that as well in the in-game chat, that some of the heroes, and when I mean some of the heroes, Aurora, Omni, and Blade, I don't think a whole lot of us managed to stick around long enough to keep Blade, because by the time I unlocked Blade, I only had about 2 hours left in the playtest. Or not Blade, sorry, Omni. By the time I had about 2 hours left in the playtest, it was already kind of too late. The player base was already kind of dwindling. I think everyone kind of had their time with it, and I was still enjoying Blade. I actually really liked how Blade plays, but Aurora was also pretty fun. I didn't really get a chance to experiment with Omni, but when you start getting used to the mechanics of upgrading your skills, and there's actually theme skills as well, and they actually get, I think they're referred to as arbiters. So you have arbiter of games, you have arbiters of thunder, you have arbiter of lust, I think arbiter of sound or music. I think it's called arbiter of music. So they're essentially themed abilities that actually enhance your skills. So if you press the E button, it'll summon like a sound wave, or it'll summon a thunder strike, or in some cases it'll summon a QB's little companion. You actually see this on screen right now. There's a little QB next to Aurora on the left side. That's a little companion. Depending on what kind of skills you unlock, the QB has different types of effects, and depending on which skill it's attached to, that QB will also have a different way of being summoned, whether it's through the alt, your primary fire, or your main ability, which is your E, or your right click. Either way, every single one of your main abilities is also tied to some sort of enhancement to those skills, like the arbiters. There's also a whole list of themed upgrades as well, called perk upgrades. So every time you clear a section of a dungeon, you'll get access to a shop, and the shop will allow you to spend gold on upgrading your perks, increasing your health, healing yourself, upgrading relics, or buying new relics that'll give you set pieces, which gives you enhanced bonuses. A whole lot of ways to actually increase the power of your character, and gold is just something you earn just through defeating enemies and such. There's also perks that allow you to gain more gold per defeated enemy, stuff like that. It's pretty cool. I feel like there's a lot of depth in there, and kind of picking a playstyle. And that's another thing too with the playstyle, is while every single hero has a very unique kit, you can actually enhance those kits with the fact that they can actually have new weapons as well, which is actually pretty cool in this kind of style of shooter. You don't see this kind of style often, even though kind of, you could kind of consider Destiny kind of that way too, where, there was 3 main classes: Warlock, Titan, and Hunter, and then obviously you could fine tune those classes. I could see the comparison to make between this game and Destiny. You can also make this comparison between Terminull Brigade and Warframe, or First Descendant. So any of those PvE games where it's class based, but you also have the option to enhance your skills, or not enhance your skills, but to change your weapon. I just feel like it's different here in Terminull Brigade. So the way you progress your character, like a specific hero, like say for Aurora, for example, if you really like her, you play her enough, you actually start earning proficiency points. Those proficiency points go into 10 tiers of proficiency for that specific rogue tier or hero, whatever you want to refer to them as. And as you do that, you'll actually unlock passive bonuses. You'll unlock new weapon choices. And from what I can tell currently in the playtest, there were 3 available weapons to choose from. I don't think we could actually unlock him. At least not to my knowledge, but probably someone else did, because the moment I unlocked Omni and Blade, I did switch over to them to play them a bit. But if I had stuck with Aurora the entire time, I probably would have been able to experiment with her other weapons, just to see what kind of enhancements they do, like what kind of play style, how those weapons alter her play style. So those are actually pretty neat effects. There's also a tier, which is a more more standardized for tier, which is actually kind of universal for every character. So whatever stats you put into it, it's just a baseline stat for your character, or not for your character, but for your profile as a whole. So if it's like, you know, plus 35% damage or whatever, it's not 35% damage for that specific rogue tier like Aurora. It's just 35% damage overall. So regardless of the hero, you gain those benefits. That's pretty cool. But they also have individual skill tiers as well. I don't think I have any footage of that. There was a lot to kind of go through in a short amount of time. And then obviously with that, Marvel Rivals just dropped season 3. So now I got to get to season 3 and get something going there. I don't think I'm ever going to be playing Jean for at least for a time anyway, but that's besides the point. So there was a lot going on this past weekend, trying to get all this, or not this past weekend, but this past week, trying to get all this sorted out. I feel like I'm falling behind right now. I have to just focus on Rogeteers because I already have a whole lot going on with it. I was already working on this midway through. Couldn't just drop it and move on to Marvel Rivals for season 3. Now there were some parts of the game I couldn't understand, which was mostly like the skills and how the leveling works, and mostly referring to like the perks and such. Some of the perks were actually kind of hard to, or not hard, but a little bit difficult to translate as far as how exactly they work in the game. How do I activate them? Are they passive? Are they active? That kind of thing. But again, you know, I didn't get a whole lot of time to actually look through this game because I was busy between this, my real life job, and obviously trying to get Marvel Rivals going. So there was a whole lot I couldn't really. Oh, and of course Delta Force just recently had an update too, which is actually pretty cool. Released a cool skin for Luna, which I can actually get for free just by playing the game. That's actually pretty cool, rather than spending the bullshit on the mic. You know what? I gotta cool it down. But yeah, between this, Delta Force, Marvel Rivals, a lot to go through. So there was a whole lot of mechanics within Terminull Brigade that I couldn't really research properly. But when it comes down to the gist of the gameplay itself, and we'll just quickly move on over to the gameplay, because hopefully on the full release I can actually get a firm grasp on the actual mechanics and everything that the game offers. I mentioned earlier that the game is actually, I wouldn't say unbalanced, but it does offer you that element of power fantasy. You can easily swipe through every single section of this mission without needing teammates, with the exception of course of the boss. The bosses, as you go up in difficulty tiers, they do get a little bit more challenging. Otherwise, besides the bosses, fighting just the general enemies throughout the missions, it was actually a piece of cake. I never really noticed my health or my teammates' health ever dropping throughout these missions, except for when we fought the higher difficulty tiered bosses. And I'm not sure if that is gonna translate well on full release, because this is a PvE game. It's supposed to be a team-based game. It doesn't look like there was an option to play these missions solo, so it doesn't look like you have to actually play with a team. Obviously you can play with friends and whatnot. I hope that they rebalance the enemies to make them a little bit more challenging as you start understanding the game and understanding the perks, how the theme perks work, how all these abilities to the perks work, how all the active skills and your passive, just all that combined. You put all that together and it makes for a really simple, basically like a walkthrough up until you get to the boss points. Hopefully that does get adjusted. If it's going to be like this at full release, I don't think the game is going to have a healthy player base. I would say it's probably going to drop pretty quickly to more of a niche audience, and I'm really hoping that doesn't happen, because we do need more PvE games. Yeah, we do have Helldivers, we do have Space Marine 2, which arguably has a much stronger PvE community than it does a PvP game. The PvP community side of things, I mean, I think they're just happy that Space Marine 2 still offered PvP. It's just PvP really isn't the developer's strong point, and you know what, that's kind of okay with me. Right now the gaming market is saturated with PvP games, so it's always nice to essentially pick up a PvE game and basically just give yourself a break from all the problems and the issues that come with PvP. A lot of times too, when you're playing something like Call of Duty, where everyone's just kind of screaming in your ear, especially for those of you who play in full mic lobbies and you actually don't bother muting your lobbies like I do. That way the game's a little bit more peaceful to play. The less PvE games that we have, it's kind of, you know, it's probably not the greatest, because there's a lot of times where I feel like wanting to play a game when I come home from work, but I don't want to play a PvP game. I don't want to deal with the hassle of trying to fight sweaty players and whatnot. I just want to be able to go into a game with a couple of random people, because, you know, I don't have friends to play with, and kind of just mess around and just have a good time killing a whole bunch of computer controlled enemies, whether it's a bunch of hordes or boss boss type characters. I just want to be able to take a break from that, and every now and then when I feel like it, yeah, I'll play PvP game. Now for Terminull Brigade in particular, the devs did say that, you know, part of the playtest, obviously with any playtest in particular, is the idea is to get feedback and improve the game before its final release date, you know, make whatever changes. At the moment, Terminull Brigade with the playtest was a pretty smooth experience. I did not have any crashes. I wasn't stuttering. I know some players kind of said that there were like some stuttering issues. I never experienced it once. This was probably one of the smoothest playtests, closed beta playtest, whatever you want to call it. One of the best experiences ever. It was such a smooth game, and I'm really hoping that it's like this on full release. It's just the main issue, like I mentioned earlier, is the balancing aspect of it, the power fantasy. Yeah, it's pretty cool that in some PvE games like Destiny and Warframe, and I'm pretty sure the First Ascendant as well. I haven't been able to play First Ascendant for about a year now because every time I launch the game, it just freezes on the load, and that's it. I don't know what's going on. Someone told me I should probably whitelist the game so I can actually launch it. But either way, the problem with these type of power fantasy type games where all the power is going to the player is it makes the game very easy. In something like Warframe, you can make the adjustments needed. There are difficulties that are like really, really difficult, and you need to be incredibly strong. You need to be incredibly skilled with your particular Warframe. You can't just pick a random Warframe and go through Steel Path and expect to be as godly as you are in just normal difficulty. With Terminull Brigade, because of how confined these maps are, they aren't open world like they are in First Ascendant or Destiny, or at least for Destiny, the dungeons aren't as big as they are in Destiny. So it's a very confined space, a very claustrophobic environment. And coupled with the fact that a lot of the times the enemies are kind of just going to spawn in large groups at one time, it's very easy to get the drop on those groups and then kind of just decimate that whole corner of where all these enemies are spawning. That's kind of contributes to the fact that a lot of times you can clear these areas with ease. Another reason why it doesn't feel like you need to be in a team for a game like this is it definitely does scream solo play for sure, but I can also see the fact that, yeah, they wanted this to be a team game, a PvE experience for a reason, and I can also see why they only limited it to 3 players per team. A couple of players I spoke to who managed to get up to difficulty tiers 5, 6, and 7, they did mention that the game does take a 180 on you, going from very easy to suddenly insane. But again, I wasn't able to experience it because for some reason, I guess I never cleared any of these missions on tier 4 in under half an hour or 31 minutes as the game says. So I can't really I can't really talk about whether or not that was a good change. I do just have to kind of just take their word for it. But other players who were in those same tiers were also saying the game's difficulty really didn't change a lot. They did say that the dodging mechanic that's in the game is kind of pointless. The game kind of comes off as like a dodge or die type situation. I didn't really do a whole lot of dodging, even though a couple of the characters have built-in dodge skills. I think Aurora has a dodge skill, but Blade, who you're seeing in the background right now, she has a dash. I don't know if she's invulnerable during the dash or not. It does not explain in her description for her kit, but I did not really have the need to kind of dodge enemies' attacks. I kind of just, you know, absorbed them all as if I was a tank or something. It's only during the boss fights that you do have to kind of do some dodging, at least for the final boss fight, which is he's a dual Gatling gunner, and I did die once to him, but you can also self-revive. I don't know if that's going to be a thing in the full release or not, being able to self-revive a certain amount of distance between you and your teammate. I also died once when fighting this snake-looking thing, kind of like a basilisk-looking boss. Pretty fun boss fight, and does a lot of damage too. I mean, I did get down once during his fight, so that's the only time where I can see the difficulty kind of does make a difference, and that obviously is with the boss fights themselves. With the regular enemies, just the ones who kind of just come at you in large numbers, you really don't have to worry about them at all. There is an option to also heal yourself after clearing every single section. You can always upgrade your perks, buy new relics, kind of just increase your power on your character, or you can also heal them and also increase their health pool. I didn't feel the need to refill my health at all, but again, this is all like subject to change because it was a playtest. Hopefully the developers of this game do see the feedback and make the improvements necessary to the game to make it a little bit of a better experience in the long run. All right, I think I've talked enough about this game and about some of the other things that are going on. It's definitely a game to check out when it comes out on the 29th. It is a pretty fun game, I will say that, especially on the opening 2 or 3 hours I had with the game. It was pretty fun. I mean, everyone was saying the same thing. Pretty fresh game. It does have a bit of a fresh take on the PvE 3-player co-op experience. It feels like it's one of those games where it's kind of hard to describe what that means, and it's best to just play it to experience it. Now, to close out this video, I'll just quickly list some of the cons which I mentioned throughout the video. One is the environments. They're very small environments, and when when you start advancing in those difficulty tiers, the enemies do start kind of pouring in more like a horde type thing. And again, they do kind of all start spawning in one corner of the map a lot of times, which makes it really easy to just take them out in large groups. That kind of does take away some of the fun from the game, especially when you start building up your character and you're up in the later stages of the missions and you have an overpowered character. You have probably a certain ability that you've been working on constantly that gives out a good perk, and that's just wiping enemies completely. Could take away some of that fun from it, so hopefully there are some improvements made to it. I think at the moment 3 players is definitely more than enough. I think this game could easily get away with having another mode where taking away 1 player and turning it into a 2-player experience. I could definitely see that being a thing. That would actually be pretty cool as well. I don't know what kind of other modes they're going to be offering, but they did say that it's specifically going to be a PvE game. Some players in particular did express that they want to see an extraction shooter battle royale type thing in this game. I absolutely disagree with that assessment. We definitely don't need another battle royale. We definitely don't need another extraction shooter. I mean, we just recently had an extraction shooter come out with Mecha Break. Granted, Mecha Break is having its own problems now, especially with the microtransactions, and that brings me to my final piece on this game is the microtransactions. I do not know what those are going to look like because this is a PvE game. I am pretty sure there's not going to be any pay to win mechanics, but they did tease that there are going to be skins in the game because there is a tab for each rogue tier for skins. Hopefully the skins are not overpriced. I mean, I don't mind putting some money into this game. It was pretty fun. I did enjoy my time with it, and I don't mind supporting the developers if they bring out some cool skins for some of my favorite rogue tiers. Microtransactions don't break this game because right now the microtransactions are currently hemorrhaging the player base for Mecha Break. In fact, that's why a lot of the reviews are pretty bad with Mecha Break, but we'll have to wait and see until the 29th to see what this game looks like on full release. Okay, that was a lot. Now I have to go and I don't know, I gotta see what I can do for Marvel Rivals because season 3 just dropped and I need to start working on that. So stay tuned for upcoming Marvel Rivals video. As far as Space Marine 2 is giving me some connection issues. I don't know why, but ever since the Siege update, I'm having some issues trying to actually stay in a game. A lot of times I'm just getting kicked out of a game for connection issues. So until then, Space Marine 2, I think I have to shelf for now until those connection issues get sorted out because I still have not been able to complete even 1 wave of Siege. So there's that. All right, if you like this video, just follow along and stay tuned for the next one. Till then, you guys.